allow me to introduce you to the artist Dean Russo, whose favorite things are art and animals. He says that each one of his masterpieces begins with a bold ink outline. I then focus on the eyes of my subject because the eyes are perhaps the most important element in each piece. I like to use bold colors and abstract patterns. Ooh, look, the artist Frida Kahlo. Ah, he even uses images from popular culture. We could call him a pop artist. We know this lovely lady, the Mona Lisa. She sure looks a lot different than how Leonardo da Vinci painted her. Mr. Russo uses bold colors, beautiful patterns to create his masterpieces, and he is our inspiration for our artwork today. To create our tiger, we're first going to need to find the bottom middle of our paper. There it is. We are going to start with the nose of our tiger. We're going to be using a paint marker. Our nose of our tiger will be about 3 fingers from the bottom middle. Now we're going to start, this is the bottom of the nose. We're going to start by drawing 2 diagonal lines, creating a V shape, but a wide V shape for the nose of our tiger. Now we're going to close the nose with a horizontal line. If you draw a line that is not what you think is perfect, don't you worry about it. Take a deep breath. Just keep going. From here, I'm going to make a nostril for the tiger, 2 of them, using kind of little circles on the sides of that diagonal line V. Now let's work on the muzzle of the tiger. I'm going to make a short line that comes down, but notice it did not go to the bottom of the paper. Now what I'm going to make are the curves, and sometimes I find it helpful to do a little bit of air drawing with my finger before drawing with my paint marker. That'll make it so I don't make as many mistakes as I might if I just went for it without practicing first. It'll look a little bit like our tiger is smiling. Now our drawing for a while is going to be symmetrical, meaning it's going to be the same on both sides. So whatever you draw on one side, you're going to make a mirror image of it on the other. I'm adding a little curve here, and then I'm going to color that in. That's the mouth of our tiger. Now let's go ahead and add the chin. Let's talk about an element of art called texture, shall we? Texture is the way something feels. To make my tiger have a fuzzy or furry appearance, I didn't use a straight line, but kind of a dashed line. Now my tiger is not smiling, so I'm going to bring up the side of the muzzle. Notice I went very close to about the middle of the paper on both sides. You'll see here that now my picture is not perfectly symmetrical, and that's okay. Now we're going to create the bridge of the nose, and you'll notice I'm doing some air drawing to see just how far up that line should go. You have a bridge of your nose too. It's where your sunglasses sit or your glasses. Tigers have one also, but theirs is very wide. And you'll notice that the bridge of the nose kind of has a curved out look at the end. That's because that's where its eyebrow starts to come over. As you know, with most cats and dogs, tigers also have whiskers. And if you looked really closely at your cat or dog, you'll notice that the hole that the whisker comes from, the holes are all in a straight line. Now let's work on the eyes. I'm making a nice big curve for the top part of the eye. It almost looks like he's laughing so hard his eyes are closed. Now I'm going to make a curved line, and this curved line is going to be the pupil. So it's not going from one end of that line to the other. Now I'm adding something called a highlight. So I basically colored in the pupil, leaving one part white. Now I'm making a bigger curved line. Oops, it's not the same on both sides. Deep breath. That is okay. I'm going to extend the eye a little bit and then color it in, giving my tiger more of a cat-like look. So let me show you how I did that again on the other eye. I made the eye a little bit longer on both sides, brought it in with kind of an A-line shape, and then I colored that in. And now I can even it out a little bit by making a line go underneath the eye. You'll notice that my eyes are not exactly the same. That's okay. Let's talk about now making the top of the tiger's head.
Oh, my bow is in the way. Sorry.
I made a curve. Move your bow, Miss Stevens. And then I went ahead and made a big A line for the ear. I'm doing the same thing on the other side. This time you can actually see it because my big giant bow on my head isn't in the way. You'll notice I added another line and some dash lines for texture. Now I'm adding the lines to show the stripes. Once again, I'm using the element of art called texture. Let's talk about some other elements of art I'm using, shall we? Line, shape, texture. Those are my focus today. On the side of the muzzle, I made 2 diagonal lines, and I know I'm going really fast. So if I'm going too fast for you, just press pause, or you can always rewind the video. All right, now I've made the curved parts of the head. And again, if you need to practice by doing a little bit of error drawing, go for it. It's starting to look a lot more like a tiger. But did you know that tigers, like lions, also have a little bit of a mane? They have a lot more fur that goes around their head. So I'm adding that mane right now by making the lines and kind of like a ziggy-zag texturing line that shows the texture that goes around the head. Yay! I know that your tiger looks amazing, and now we're ready to add the next element of art, color. For that, we'll need a color wheel. A color wheel is a wheel with a bunch of colors on it. That's why it's called a color wheel. But the placement of those colors is super important, and it's going to be very helpful for us when we are picking our chalk. We're going to use analogous colors, colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So what you need to do is pick one color, like I did green, and then go in one direction of the color wheel or the other. Let's go over that one more time. You're only going to use 3 colors in an area. Pick one color you really want to use. I picked magenta. Now I'm picking a darker magenta and a purple. Or I could go the opposite direction on the color wheel, picking maybe a red and an orange. Analogous colors look beautiful next to each other when you're creating a work of art. So as you are picking out your colors, make sure that you are picking out colors that are analogous next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to start with this blue. I could go one direction or the other, so it looks like I'm heading towards green. So these are the 3 colors I can use in a section. Perfect. Now let's get started. Chalk is pretty dusty, so we're going to do a little bit of a trick today with our chalk. We're going to be using starch to blend the chalk in. When you're using chalk, it's different than using a crayon. You don't have to fill in the entire space. Notice that you can overlap the colors a little bit, but you'll see that I do have a lot of white areas. All right, I've picked my 3 analogous colors, and now I'm going to blend them in using the starch. That's the stuff that's in the white cup. All you have to do is take your finger, dip it in the starch, and then gently massage the chalk. It's pretty amazing because it turns the chalk into paint. Here's the only problem though. If you let your finger rub too much on your black lines, the starch will wake the black paint up, causing the black paint to mix with the other colors, which could make your colors start to get muddy. So when you get close to that black line, go a little slower and try not to touch it with your finger that has starch on it. Already my colors are looking a lot more bright and a lot more bold. If you feel like your finger gets too dirty from mixing all of those other colors, then just get a tissue or a baby wipe and clean your finger off.
Oh, see what I'm talking about?
If you let your finger massage the part where you've painted too much, it will wake up that paint. That's an easy fix.
Just make sure you don't do it again.
I'm just going to leave it be and not worry about it. All right, now I'm ready to switch to another set of colors. This time I'm going for blue, and I'm going to add some analogous colors to blue. If you're not sure if they're analogous or not, you could simply use all warm or all cold colors. That might help you a bit. All right, once again, don't forget to dip your finger in the starch and just gently massage. Go slowly, go carefully so your colors can stay nice and beautiful. Notice when I'm massaging with my finger, I'm not using big circles. I'm using small circles. You'll also notice I'm only using one finger, not my entire hand. So make sure that you do the same thing, please, and thanks. All right, let's see if we can speed this up a little bit, Stevens. In smaller spaces, you might just want to use one color, not 3 colors. And when you're coloring, remember to keep in mind that you don't have to fill in the whole place. So coloring doesn't have to be done super neatly. Notice that I'm not coloring on top of the black, but I am making sure to color around it. Always use your color wheel to make sure that you are using colors that are analogous. Don't forget to make small little circles when you're massaging and to try really hard not to, we'll call it, wake up the black paint and cause it to blend in with your other colors. I know that you are going to do your best. Take your time, use the analogous colors, and make a marvelous masterpiece that I cannot wait to see. When we're finished adding color, baby, color to these incredible tigers, then what we're going to do is begin to add patterns with a completely different art supply. All right, you know what to do. I know you're going to do amazing things. Let's get started. Ooh, if only we could work so quickly. Here's a time lapse of me finishing up my masterpiece. Because I'm using starch, it will have to dry before we move on to the next step. Your work of art is a little bit bigger than mine, okay, a lot bigger. It might take you more than one art class to finish this part. Now let's talk about adding patterns. Your tiger needs to be completely dry before we can start adding patterns to it. Because if it's wet, the oil pastels that we're about to use just won't show up. Notice that the oil pastels are organized by color. Guess what? I would love it if we could keep them that way. Okay? That's what I thought. All right, so when you're using your oil pastels for patterns, you might want to consider using contrasting colors. Notice I'm about to draw on a bright yellow, and I'm using a dark purple. That way I know I will be able to see my design. If I had picked something like a light yellow, well, it would have completely blended in and been camouflaged. Or perhaps if I'd picked a peach or a white, it would have been hard to see. So if you're trying to decide what colors to use, consider using colors that are a contrast to what you're drawing on. So if I'm about to draw on a dark area, then maybe I would pick a lighter color. Notice that the blue is light and my pink is light. They are what's called the same value. So it doesn't stand out as much as the white dots on the dark pink or that dark purple zigzag. When you're creating your patterns, it's not easy to draw very intricate patterns in these small spaces. So I would recommend that you stick with things like lines.
Let's talk about some lines, shall we?
My very favorite are zigzags. Straight lines work great, a pattern of straight lines, or even loop-de-loop lines. However, dots would make great shapes too. I know that Dean Russo in his artwork used a lot of heart patterns as well. Something for you to think about. But as you're working, just keep in mind of the word contrast. You also might want to think about this word balance. If you have a lot of patterns in one area, your artwork will only be interesting in that one area. We want it to have balance where it's interesting all over. So as you are creating your patterns, make sure that you take a break, stop and look at your masterpiece and check for balance. Maybe you need more patterns on the opposite side of your paper. Perhaps you need more at the top or at the bottom. Don't forget to just use a also variety of patterns, not just the same. All right, let's see what kind of amazing things you can do to complete your masterpiece.